We have been involved in starting and sustaining mission work, mission projects, supporting missionaries, sending people, sending teams, sending resources to places that are critical, that sometimes the rest of the church ignores. The United Methodist Women have been there. I have always now for, I graduated from seminary in 1973, and I've lost track of how many years that is now. But it has always amazed me that when those studies come out every year, they are timely and relevant, planned sometimes more than 5 years in advance, and yet directed toward significant world events and places. It's amazing. You know how to interpret the present time. We have been raising awareness of important cultural and political and spiritual issues for the rest of the church for all of our history. And I think that's something to celebrate. Not just that we've been doing it for 140 years, but that we do it, able to interpret the present time. So in this 140th year, as we celebrate a birthday party this afternoon, and as we remember all those things that have gone before us, my hope is that United Methodist women in the 21st century will reclaim that edge. Now, I know there are a lot of people who criticize some of the things that we do or say, and there's some people who don't understand why we're doing this or why we're doing that. But as we listen to what God is calling us to be and to do, as we interpret that time, we are sent on a mission. That's who we are. I want to reclaim that. I want to reclaim the passion and the energy that drove Methodist women to go to India or to go to Africa or to go to Cambodia. I want to reclaim that kind of power to interpret what God is up to in the world. So we want to celebrate our heritage. We want to rejoice in the accomplishments of United Methodist women over these 140 years. But I also hope, my prayer, my challenge to the officers and to all of us who are part of any United Methodist women's group in any United Methodist church across the Western North Carolina Conference, my hope is that this 140th year will be the launching pad for the next 140 years. Not that we glory in and get stuck in our past. Aren't we wonderful? But that becomes the way in which we are driven into the future by God's Spirit. I think we live in a time that demands that the church take seriously its call to mission. It's one of the reasons in my challenge to the conference and the goals that we've set, we're now calling the Power of Three for WNCC, that one of those goals is to generate mission teams, to generate activity on behalf of Jesus Christ in the world, whether it takes you across the town where you live into the next county or across to the other side of the world. It's a part of who we are. We have to take seriously our call to mission. And I believe that the United Methodist women can be, I believe the United Methodist women must be a major force in leading the way. It is in our DNA. This is who we are, friends. We need to recover that. We need to renew it. And we need to help the church. Your local church and the district and the conference and the whole church interpret this present time. A couple of things about that. A couple of observations that may help us, at least it's helping me, begin to get a handle on how to interpret this time. First of all, to say that mission is not about geography. It is about theology. Mission is not about geography. It's about theology. Now, when I was growing up, back in the 50s and 60s, and missionaries would come to our church to tell us their stories, I sort of developed this image that to be in mission was to be somewhere outside the United States. I just thought that to be a mission was somehow to be over there. And over there meant outside the United States. Some exotic wilderness, living under a tree, drinking coconut juice. Coconut milk. I just had some over in Cambodia. I should know that. Somehow we developed this notion that mission was not in the United States. That we had it all together. I was reading some statistics that reminded me that mission is now at our front door. Mission is here now. A little over 100 years ago, almost 90% of the Christians in the world lived in what we would call the Western world, Europe or America. You got that? 100 years ago, 90% of the Christians lived in the Western world. Today, 2/3 of the Christians live outside the Western world. That means the mission field is right next door. So mission is not about geography. It's not necessarily about going to some place. Mission can be across the street from the front door of your church. That's where mission begins. And it's always at the intersection of the needs of the world and the mandates of the gospel. When those two things cross, we find our mission. And we've discovered that there is no corner of the world that is not ripe for the mission work that we bring. Now, United Methodist women have always been at that intersection. I was struck by a phrase that Harriet Olson used last night, those unreasonable women. Spoken by inconsiderate men, no doubt. And by the authorities of the church, which until recent history have been men. What has struck me as I have traveled and watched the history of how Methodist women have engaged the world is that you have understood for 140 years that intersection is where we live. All over the United States, there are community centers. Almost every one of them were started by some Methodist women's group.